Hey guys, how are you? Well, I hope so, but before I start this video, leave your like and comment that you're not a robot and that Elon Musk isn't its owner. These things are very important for my video to be recommended and for me to get rich off your efforts to help me. Well, this video is about a famous souls like Ice-Guy. There are only a few of them, and they're my favorite, because in this kind of Ice-Guy, the main characters just hang out in the boutique all the time. A real treat. Our story begins with our main character, Haruhiro, waking up in total darkness. He remembers nothing, not even how he got here. Suddenly, a gate opens. He steps out and meets a group of people just as confused as he is, looking up at the sky. They all notice a group of guards some distance away, who direct them to a small tavern run by a booth user, who introduces himself as Bri, short for Britain, which in Japanese would be baritone. He welcomes everyone and tells them that this world is known as Grimgar. The white-haired guy tells him to shut up and explain what's going on, and adds to his arrogance by throwing a few homophobic insults at Bri. But Brittany immediately fights back, pulling out a dagger and putting it to his throat, while saying that he hates arrogant men. Even after that, Randy defends his point of view, challenging him and saying that a deer belongs in the closet. After this little standoff, Brittany decides to let him go and gives them all their starting items, a bag, some money, and lets them fend for themselves against the monsters. The next day, Haruhiro ends up joining the players who hadn't been selected by any group. They all made Manato their leader and decided to join different guilds. Haruhiro ends up joining the Thieves Guild, where he meets his beautiful teacher, Barbara. After 7 insane days of training where Haruhiro could see beautiful things, but was also scared all the time, he finally becomes a full thief. Maguzo ends up becoming the group's tank. Ranta joins the Dark Guild. Yume becomes a hunter. Chihiro, a maid. And finally Manato, who becomes a priest. A few days after the group is formed, they're chasing a goblin, and when Ranta tries to attack it, he ends up getting blocked. The goblin fights back, attacking Ranta mercilessly, pushing him back with each blow, forcing Haruhiro to step in with his own attack. Ranta tells him to kill the goblin straight away, but Haruhiro replies, saying he'll stick his sword somewhere else. Suddenly, an arrow narrowly misses. The arrow was fired by Yume, who's basically the group's archer, while the group's leader, Manato, tells everyone to hold the line and use only close-range weapons. Hearing this, Maguzo tries to attack the goblin, but his giant sword gets stuck in a tree, and the goblin doesn't miss the opportunity and escapes. Suddenly, the goblin turns around and sees Chihiro, the group's waifu maid. He runs at her faster than a drug dealer running from the cops and attacks before she can cast a spell. Luckily for her, the Berserk fan arrives and saves her from being hit by the goblin, but she starts crying because of a small scratch, making her stronger than me, who's afraid of injection. Manato quickly heals her and then gives a speech telling everyone that this is a life or death situation, so if they let their guard down, they'll all be beaten to a pulp by goblin. The cursed man's speech gives them all a deadly boost, and they prepare to fight. Ranta can't believe that goblins are supposed to be the weakest monsters in this world, while Haruhiro realizes that at this point, they're even weaker than the weakest monsters, so they're forced to run away. The next morning, Haruhiro wakes up at dawn and is immediately pestered by his roommate, Ranta, who tells him that not even a failed experiment is as useless as he is. They start arguing over nonsense, but are soon interrupted when Manato opens the door and tells them to go downstairs, since canned wind coffee has been served for breakfast. At that moment, Haruhiro remembers that today he was supposed to make fried air for everyone, but Manato tells him to worry. Their food is only imaginary anyway. They go downstairs, and the 6 of them sit in the courtyard for breakfast. Manato asks if everyone's feeling okay, and then says they should head back to the forest and try killing a goblin again. He explains that 2 goblins would be too much for them to handle, so their best shot is to find a lone goblin and take it down. Ranta doesn't really like that strategy. He wants to farm as much XP as possible, but agrees since they're too weak to do anything else. So they head into the jungle, and as the sun sets, Yume spots 4 goblins by a river, chilling and laughing while talking about One Piece. She thinks about attacking them, but they all agree it's better not to. There's no way they can take on 4 smart goblins at once, so they head back for the night and plan to try again the next day. That night, Haruhiro wakes up to take a leak and notices that Manato isn't home. He goes out to check and sees him coming back from outside. Manato says he went out looking for single mothers 4 kilometers away, but ended up just spending money trying to gather more info about this world. Haruhiro serves him some grass tea, thanks him for working so hard for the team, and they shake hands. Then they spend the rest of the night chatting about how this Ice-Guy feels like it was made by Miyazaki. The next morning, they go into the forest on an empty stomach. Haruhiro spots a lone goblin drinking water and reports it to the team. They all ready their weapons and slowly move toward the stream where the goblin is hiding in a bush. Haruhiro grabs his dagger and prepares to start the attack, but before he can do anything, some random bug flies toward the goblin and alerts him. The goblin starts running, and Haruhiro chases after him. Yume fires an arrow and manages to stop him, while Ranta, for some reason, is fighting the trees. Haruhiro ends up tripping and falling on the riverbank, and the goblin doesn't miss the chance. He immediately attacks. Haruhiro dodges and tries to counterattack, but he misses and ends up in a direct confrontation with the goblin. Suddenly, he remembers his training and slashes the goblin's wrist, which only makes the goblin even angrier. Haruhiro keeps dodging and evading, while Manato tells everyone to attack. Ranta immediately goes in with a powerful blow, but he misses and gets kicked right in the back. When the goblin tries to finish him off, Manato steps in and saves him. Soon after, a spell is cast at the goblin, but the one who cast it can't aim properly. They all surround the miserable creature, while Maguso tries to keep it distracted. The goblin jumps back, only to be stabbed from behind by Ranta. The goblin, realizing it's not going to survive, starts screaming, which freaks them out a bit, but Ranta recovers and attacks again, charging into the beast. Haruhiro and Yume also attack, but they're pushed back by the goblin. Then Chihiro casts another spell, and this time, she lands a hit. But before Haruhiro can take advantage of the opening, the goblin throws its dagger, stabbing Haruhiro in the shoulder. He screams in pain as the goblin rushes up and stands over him, ready to finish the job. At the last second, Haruhiro stabs the goblin in the neck, while Ranta pushes it away, and Maguso follows up with a deadly blow to the head. Everyone is left in shock after what just happened. Yume quickly runs to Haruhiro and helps pull the dagger out, while Manato rushes over to heal him. Right after that, Ranta starts rummaging through the goblin's body looking for loot and finds a silver coin near its neck, but suddenly, the goblin starts moving again. Ranta chases it and keeps stabbing it repeatedly to make sure it's really dead this time. Once it finally stops moving, he collapses to the ground and starts crying, while Haruhiro notices his own hand shaking from all the violence. After that, they head back to the city, sell everything they looted, divide the money, and each one goes off to spend the afternoon however they like. Haruhiro decides to wander around the market, where he sees all kinds of people, even spotting Ranta, who looks down and is eating alone, while the others enjoy the end of their day in different ways. That evening, they all meet up on the bridge and watch the sunset together. Then they head to bed, since obviously they'll need to get back to work the next day if they want to eat. The next morning, their tank Maguso is already up, eating that delicious-looking plate of food. Haruhiro gives him some eggs and then goes out to wake up the others. As usual, Ranta tries to offend Yume by calling her Supreme Lord Oni, referencing the father of the skulls from Dark Souls, which earns him a solid slap in the face. Oh yeah, that's Supreme Lord Walnir. That boss is weak. But Dark Souls came out on March 24th, 2016, and I've only just managed to beat him. After that, the days start getting harder. Every time they go into the forest, it starts raining, forcing them to take shelter under tents. One day, Yume and Haruhiro go scouting and find an old campfire and a bunch of goblin footprint. Haruhiro counts at least 3 different sets and decides it's better to avoid fighting for now. They return to the group, and everyone agrees to come back tomorrow. There's no way to fight in this weather, which means they didn't make a single coin today either. 3 days pass, and they've earned literally nothing because of the heavy rain. They're so broke that Haruhiro can't even afford a new pair of underpants. He's stuck washing and reusing the same pair over and over again. The next day, they head to a nearby town that's completely in ruin, but the good thing is that the goblins here aren't very alert, which makes them easy target. Haruhiro scouts ahead and finds a sleeping goblin inside an abandoned house, so he reports back to the group and they all move out, ready to make Goblin Slayer proud. They take their position, and Ranta slowly approaches the goblin and stabs it in the neck, waking it up. The goblin screams and tries to fight back, but Manato quickly strikes him in the face, then lands a final blow to the head, finishing him off. They end up getting a good amount of loot from the goblin, which boosts everyone's morale, but Manato reminds them it's too early to celebrate, they still need to make it back safely. After that day, the ruined city became their favorite hunting spot. They'd often run into goblins that were easy to kill, but sometimes they'd be forced to fight out in the open. Occasionally, they'd spot groups of 4 or 5 goblins, but fighting those was out of the question, so they stuck to targeting lone, inexperienced ones. Soon, they started saving up some serious money, and Haruhiro finally had enough to buy some proper underwear. Ranta and Maguso spent their earnings on food and even brought back a bunch of snacks, but Manato told them to take it easy on spending. If they saved enough, they'd be able to learn new skills, which would help them in battle. Everyone agreed, and they all went to sleep, planning to head out again the next day. The next morning, Manato and Chihiro went out to get supplies. On the way back, Manato stops to feed some birds and notices Chihiro watching curiously. He He asks if she wants to try it. She refuses at first, but eventually agrees, and just as she feeds one, a pigeon jumps into her hands, scaring her so much she stumbles and falls. Luckily, the great Manato catches her in time and scolds her for being so clumsy. That day, they head back to the usual ruins for another hunt. One of the goblins charges straight at Ranta for a direct fight. Ranta launches the first attack, but the goblin easily dodges it. While he's busy in the fight, Haruhiro and Yum get into position. She uses her new skill, Ice Slash, which allows her to hit enemies from a distance. Taking advantage of the distraction, Haruhiro rushes the goblin, dodges its attack, and stabs it in the back, finishing it off cleanly. With that done, Yum starts cleaning her weapons while Ranta goes straight to looting the goblin's body. But there are still more goblins in the area. She quickly uses her other new ability, Shadow Bind, on one of the unsuspecting goblins, pinning it in place. Manato follows up with a hit to the shoulder, breaking the goblin's arm, and Ranta finishes it with a quick strike. Meanwhile, Maguso is locked in combat with another goblin, but he's got the upper hand thanks to his raw strength. He smashes the goblin in the head, then uses a special move that sends the monster flying into a wall. Ranta jumps in to finish it off. They gather up the loot and finally sit down to eat after a very successful morning hunt. Now everyone is talking about how far they've come as a team, that they're finally working in sync to defeat enemies much more easily. They even start discussing the possibility of attacking larger groups of goblins, since they're now more experienced and stronger. They finally get up to start their afternoon hunt, but while Manato is leading the group, Haruhiro suddenly notices something glowing and immediately jumps towards Manato, pushing him away just as an arrow hits Haruhiro in the shoulder. Haruhiro falls to the ground and Manato runs to him, but before he can heal him, another arrow hits Haruhiro in the leg, making him scream in pain. The others immediately carry him to safety, but at that moment, they hear screams from the girls. A giant goblin has appeared. Ranta charges toward it while Maguso is busy fighting another goblin. Manato tells everyone to fall back while they try to fight, but it becomes clear they're greatly outnumbered. If they don't retreat soon, they'll all die. They start hiding in the buildings and try to escape, but then one goblin climbs to the top of a building and fires a perfect shot, an arrow that changes everything. The arrow hits Manato, but he keeps running until everyone finally reaches the forest. Everyone is gasping for breath, and Haruhiro notices that Manato looks pale. Suddenly, Manato collapses to the ground, and that's when Haruhiro sees the crossbow arrow in his back. The group rushes to help, but Manato is the only one who knows healing magic. He tries to cast a spell on himself, but unfortunately, he hasn't been blessed with any animesekai hack. Haruhiro asks him what they should do. Manato tries to speak, but he dies right there from blood loss, while the others desperately try to do whatever they can, all in vain. With no options left, they take him to a temple, hoping a priest can use magic to revive him. But as soon as the old priest sees Manato, he shakes his head and says he can't help, their friend is already dead. Ranta is furious and threatens the priest, while Haruhiro begs him to try anything. But the priest calmly says that nothing can be done and recommends they hold a proper funeral, because if someone dies without one, they risk returning as a zombie under the command of the Demon King's army. They ask if they'll have to cremate Manato, and the old man silently nods. Everyone is devastated. Haruhiro asks if it costs money, and to their misfortune, the priest says yes, a decent amount, but he adds that if they can't afford it, he'll cover it himself, because Manato was one of his best students. In response, Haruhiro yells, saying they'll pay for Manato's funeral no matter what it costs, because he was their great friend and deserves a proper farewell. The entire group mourns the loss of their leader, the one who was always calm, cool, and collected, the one who made sure everyone survived no matter what. In the end, after cremating him, they release his ashes into a beautiful valley. After that, they all lie down right where they are, not knowing what to do next, because it was always Manato who made the plans and kept everything moving. Without him, the group feels aimless and completely lost. Eventually, Ranta gets up and says he's leaving. Haruhiro asks him where he's going, but Ranta doesn't even know himself. Haruhiro and the others stay sitting there a while longer, and Haruhiro looks around, realizing that the whole team is starting to fall apart. That evening, Haruhiro and Maguso head to the nearby tavern and see Ranta sitting alone at a table. They sit with him for a few drinks and begin talking about what to do next. Ranta says he doesn't want to be an adventurer anymore. He says he doesn't have the will or strength to go back into the forest and kill again. He thinks maybe they should just find a different job. Haruhiro tells him that they have to be adventurers and that there's no explanation for it. Those words make Ranta snap. He starts shouting at Haruhiro, and Haruhiro yells back. During the argument, Ranta goes too far and says that it's Haruhiro's fault Manato died, that Haruhiro was the one who got shot, trying to play the hero. Before the fight gets worse, Maguzo, usually calm and quiet, suddenly yells at both of them to stop. He's full of rage, and the shock of seeing him like that brings silence to the table. Everyone calms down, and they finally start discussing what to do now. Ranta says he doesn't believe they can go on without Manato, because none of them are as good as he was. But Haruhiro insists they have to keep going, they need money to eat and sleep. Suddenly, a man named Kikawa approaches. He says he overheard their conversation and asks how they're doing. They tell him about the death of their friend and leader. Kikawa feels sorry for them, but says they have to carry on. When they mention they need a new priest, Kikawa explains that priests are the center of a party, they should never be on the front line. He says that even monsters know to take out the healer first, because healers are the most troublesome members of any team. In his group, the priest is always protected by 2 warriors at all times. This hits Maguzo hard, since Manato used to fight on the front lines like a regular DPS. Kikawa tells them not to dwell on it, what's done is done, and that they need to move forward. But before leaving, he insists they find a priest, or else they'll all end up dead. Haruhiro says no one's going to want to join them, they're probably the weakest team in the city, with no money and nothing to offer. But Kikawa encourages them to keep trying and promises to ask around for some candidates before returning to his table. The next morning, the group is introduced to a stern-looking woman named Mary. She's supposed to be Manato's replacement, but she's nothing like him. No smile, no warmth. When they try to introduce themselves, Mary cuts them off and asks where they're going. Someone says they'll probably go to the ruins again, but Mary snaps back, saying to make up your mind before you speak. Ranta tries to push back, telling her to lose the attitude, but her cold personality throws him off, and he just ends up apologizing. Then she tells Haruhiro to get moving, or she's going home. The whole team is uncomfortable with her antisocial attitude and begins to doubt if she'll actually stick around. Later that night, the guys go drinking again at the tavern. While talking about the difficult situation they're in, they all agree how hard it was to work with Mary. Even when they finally came up with a plan for battle, she just flat out refused to fight. She kept saying that she's a priestess and has to stay hidden, that she'll only show herself when someone's injured. Ranta tried to talk to Mary about it, telling her that she needed to actually show up for the fights too, but she completely rebuffed him, seriously explaining that her duty was to heal serious injuries, not to cause harm. So when the time finally came for a real fight, Mary completely ignored the formation they had created, which even made Maguzo furious. When they finally clashed with a goblin, Ranta got injured. Yume and Haruhiro quickly pushed the goblin back together, and Haruhiro asked Mary to heal Ranta while they held off the goblins, but Mary simply replied that his injury wasn't that serious and there was no need to waste mana on such a minor wound. Because of this mess, the goblins, who were already on the verge of defeat, ended up fleeing, and the group gained absolutely nothing from the fight. Afterward, Haruhiro drowns his sorrows in drinks, thinking about how easily Manato would have handled the situation, because back when he was around, taking down 2 goblins was nothing. Now, Haruhiro feels like he'll never be able to lead like Manato. No matter how hard he tried, Ranta tells him to just let it go and focus on clearing the ruined city, making as much money as possible so they can finally afford the badge for the next level. But Haruhiro says they can't just abandon a priest in their group, and suddenly, everyone falls silent, because Renji has entered the tavern. He looks like the textbook overpowered Ice Guy protagonist, fully decked out in epic armor from head to toe. He walks past everyone and approaches Haruhiro. Without saying much, Renji hands him a gold coin as a gesture, saying he felt bad about Manato's death. But Haruhiro immediately stands up and follows him. He gives the coin back, saying the gesture was kind, but he can't accept it. Renji just nods, takes it back, and walks away. When Haruhiro returns to the table, he's met with an angry glare from Ranta. Ranta tells him that a single gold coin equals 100 silver coins, enough to buy badges for the entire team. But Maguzo says Manato Minato wouldn't have liked if they'd just accepted money like that. Ranta disagrees and honest, this time, I kind of agree with him. Sometimes it's better to swallow your pride to boost your skills rather than go out and fight 100 goblins. Suddenly, Haruhiro speaks up and says that the problem isn't just Mary, it's all of them. He says the group hasn't been communicating properly, and ever since Minato died, they've barely spoken to the girl. Ranta tells him to figure out a way to reconnect with them, but Haruhiro admits he has no idea how. Later that rainy evening, Haruhiro waits outside while Yum comes out of the bath. He asks her if she's mad at them, but she replies coldly that she's not. Haruhiro apologizes, saying it was his fault and that he should have talked to them before inviting Mary into the group. He says he thought they wouldn't be able to do anything without support, so he rushed the decision. Suddenly, Yum yells that it's not about that, then walks up to Haruhiro and starts crying, saying that she and Shihoru aren't good at expressing their feelings, and ever since Minato's death, they've felt left out. Haruhiro responds by saying he's also bad at expressing himself, but Yum tells him they've always been a team. However, after Minato died, everyone started acting individually, like they're on their own. She says that Haruhiro is trying too hard to take Minato's place, like he has to do everything himself. But Minato was never like that. He always trusted the team and made sure everyone had their role and worked together to overcome any challenge. Haruhiro breaks down, crying like someone who just realized the paycheck won't come, and this time it's Yum who comforts him, hugging him and telling him that everything's going to be okay. After a long moment of venting, they lie down for a bit, just resting together like close friends. That's actually how I met my wife. Then Yum tells him she's going to do her best to befriend Mary, and that they'll definitely make it through all this and make Minato proud. While they're lying there, Shihoru, best waifu, by the way, opens the bathroom window to let out some steam and suddenly sees Yum in a compromising position. From her angle, it looks like Yum is trying to tame Haruhiro's snake. Haruhiro immediately panics and tries to explain that it's not what it looks like, but Shihoru just blushes, apologizes awkwardly, and closes the window. Yum doesn't care though, and tells Haruhiro she's already mastered the art of charming snakes and says she could demonstrate one day. Haruhiro tells her to quit it, since his eyes are set on Shihoru's soft features anyway, typical of men into shy girl. The next morning, everyone sits down for breakfast, getting ready for another trauma-filled adventure. They talk a bit, and Yum brings up that Mary hasn't exactly been cooperative, but also that none of them have really tried to reach out either. So she says that starting today, she's going to try to be kind to Mary and become her friend. Meguso says he wants to be nice to her too, but that she never listens to anyone or even heals properly. Ranta says he's just going to make Mary fall in love with him, so she'll act nicer to everyone, and of course, everyone ignores this clown. Haruhiro says they need to take it slow, that Mary is not going to suddenly be best friends with everyone, and they all agree. Later that day, they go meet up with her. This time they all greet her. She ignores them at first, but then finally responds and walks along with them. On the way, Yum tries to start a conversation and asks Mary what she had for breakfast. Surprisingly, though a bit hesitant, Mary answers. Yum follows up asking if she likes snacks, but Mary just says she doesn't snack, and that's the secret to her perfect figure. They reach the ruined city and hide behind some rubble after spotting a group of goblins up ahead. Haruhiro quickly comes up with a plan. Ranta and Meguso will lead the charge. The two go in first, catching the goblins off guard, while Yum and Haruhiro attack from the side, a perfect pincer attack. One goblin targets Haruhiro, and he barely dodges, while Shihoru gives cover and Yum moves in to assist. They all start attacking the goblin and dominate. Meanwhile, on the other side, Meguso and Ranta get hit by their opponents and try to fall back, but Mary suddenly yells at Meguso, telling him not to retreat because he's the damn warrior. This fires Ranta up, and he yells back, calling her a cursed camper. He gets attacked but dodges, then delivers a powerful strike, stabbing the goblin right in the neck. Meanwhile, Meguso manages to win the clash of swords and uses his heavy blade to completely crush his opponent, winning the fight. The last goblin is still alive, fighting Haruhiro and Yumi, wielding two swords like he thinks he's Kurito, which makes it hard for them to land a hit. But Chihiro steps in with a dark binding spell and traps the goblin in place, giving Yumi the opportunity to attack. However, the goblin breaks free and moves away just in time, only to be attacked by Haruhiro, who slips past his blades and lands a massive backstab, killing the goblin instantly. Everyone seems seems happy with their teamwork. Mary then goes to Maguso, who was hit on the head, and asks him to remove his helmet. He does, and she inspects the wound. When her touch causes him pain, she apologizes and uses her healing abilities to treat it, staunching the bleeding and then cleaning the injury. Ranta yells for her to heal him too, but she points out that he only has a small scratch that's already clotting. She jokes that if he wants healing so badly, he should lick it himself or maybe stick a sword in his neck, and then she'd have to heal him. It's at that moment that Haruhiro realizes something. Mary only heals after the battle is over and the threat is gone. That way, she can use her magic more efficiently. After this, Haruhiro starts to understand her actions a little better. They return to an abandoned house to rest. During this time, Haruhiro tries to make conversation, asking if there are different types of priests, but Mary replies that she doesn't know anything about that. Still, Haruhiro insists, telling her she clearly has her own way of doing things when it comes to healing. He says that Manato used to heal anyone immediately as soon as they got hurt, and asks what her approach is. Mary responds bluntly that he doesn't need to know that. Frustrated but staying calm, Haruhiro tells her they're not trying to pry into her personal life, they just want to understand how she works so the team can function better, since everyone has roles and responsibility. She cuts him off and says that if he doesn't like the way she does things, he can just say it to her face, and she'll leave the party right away. Haruhiro tries to explain it's not like that, but she interrupts again, asking him what his problem is. At that point, he gives up and decides to leave it be for now. Later that night, the whole group, including the girls, heads to a tavern. Ranta tells everyone to relax since it's their first time in a place like this. While they're chatting, they notice Mary enter the bar, even after seeing them. She completely ignores them and goes off on her own. Ranta gets annoyed at her behavior, but Chihiro points out that they didn't even try to call her over, so they can't really blame her. Ranta says they don't need to be nice to her for no reason, and Yumi snaps back, saying even Hanta's parents probably don't love him, which sparks a fight between them. In the middle of all this, they see a young knight approach Mary and start talking to her. Ranta recognizes him and says his name is Shin, he's part of a famous clan. Everyone starts wondering why someone like him would be talking to Mary. After that night, Haruhiro sits alone by the fire, thinking about how perfect Manato was, which makes him feel pessimistic about his own action. At that moment, the schizophrenia hits hard, and an illusion of Manato appears next to him, telling him, yes, you can, but Haruhiro replies that he can't do it, because none of the girls respect him. Still, the schizophrenia cycle ends with Manato repeating, you can do it, and just like that, Manato disappeared, leaving Haruhiro alone in the world once again. The next morning, they return to the ruin. Maguso and Haruhiro are both in one-on-one fight. Haruhiro slashes his opponent before glancing at Maguso and realizing that he's fighting cautiously despite being the tank. He's not wearing a helmet, meaning one hit to the head could kill him, and unlike a thief, he can't sneak behind his enemy to land a backstab. Realizing this, Haruhiro circles around and moves behind the goblin, while Maguso pushes it back. At that moment, Haruhiro takes the opportunity to strike, confusing the beast, and then Maguso follows up with an attack. That's when Haruhiro realizes that up until now, he had never really paid attention to how his teammates fought or thought much about their fighting style. Maybe that's why he's never been able to come up with strategies like Manato used. As they walk down an alley, Haruhiro tells Maguso that he should buy a helmet, and that if he doesn't have enough money, Haruhiro will pitch in to help him. But Maguso replies that Haruhiro shouldn't waste money on something he won't use himself. Haruhiro insists, saying the helmet will help Maguso fight better. He adds that he doesn't want to have to pay another cremation fee for a friend. Mary listens quietly to their conversation, while Yumi says it's a great idea and that she wants to help too. Up ahead, Ranta spots goblins and warns the group. Haruhiro ends up engaging one of them. Things escalate when a hidden goblin suddenly tries to attack Mary, but Ranta steps in and saves her, kicking the creature away and stabbing it to death. Afterward, he shouts at Mary, saying that if he has to save her one more time, she'll have to marry him. Without saying a word, Mary draws strength from her disgust for Ranta and swings her staff, crushing another goblin. That's when Haruhiro realizes something else. Even Mary has learned some offensive staff skills, but she's not like Manato, who went to the front lines and carried the team on his back, literally, because that's where he took the arrow. With this realization, Haruhiro silently decides to be even more attentive when protecting her in future battles. Later that night, as Mary heads off on her own, Haruhiro stops her and asks if she'd like to join them for dinner, since they had a successful day. With all the grace and arrogance she can muster, Mary refuses, but at least this time, she says goodbye before leaving. Hanta calls her arrogant and unpleasant ironically, since he's the most annoying and arrogant guy in the group. But Ayumi says she actually found Mary to be a little nicer than usual, and that little by little, she's warming up to them. Haruhiro agrees, and in order to understand her better, he decides to talk to Shin, from the famous clan known as Orient. He asks the rest of the group to come with him. That night, they head to the bar and end up meeting Shin, who joins them at their table. Haruhiro quickly starts gossiping about Mary, which seems to surprise Shin. Then Hayashi, another former member of Mary's party, sits with them and shares that he and Mary used to be part of a 6-person. Just like Haruhiro's group, they had great synergy and coordination right from the beginning. He says that within 10 days, they had made enough money to move on to the next level. They kept getting stronger by taking on more enemies every day. The heart of that group was Mary herself, who used to be cheerful and full of life, a complete contrast to the cold, distant version they know now in the losers group. He says that she never let anyone get hurt and was always ready to help, to the point that if someone suffered a minor scratch, she would heal it immediately. Even though she was only a support, she didn't hesitate to go to the front line and defend her teammate. Being a true all-rounder, it could be said that she was worth 3 players on her own. According to him, they kept getting stronger to the point where they became arrogant. They started venturing deeper and deeper into the dungeon, and one unfortunate day, they entered a very deep lair to fight stronger monsters. There they came across a huge monster, which had already killed countless adventurers. They should have run away, but everyone on the team thought they could handle this unknown horde of power, and that was their biggest mistake. At the time, Hayashi was knocked out by the monster, and when he came back to consciousness, he saw 2 of his teammates lying dead on the ground, while the team's warrior was giving his soul to keep the monster at bay. He shouted for Mary to heal them, but she simply clung to the body of one of her teammates before turning away with tears in her eyes and shouting that she had no more mana for magic. The warrior on the team was completely covered in blood, and there was nothing he or Mary could do to help him. Somehow, the legendary warrior got up despite his injuries and stood face to face with the enemy, telling everyone to leave this place immediately. The only thing he did was leave his nameplate with them, and Hayashi realized that it needed to be done, so he grabbed the nameplates of the remaining team members before leading Mary away from this frightened place. His warrior friend stayed behind, giving his life to save his 2 dear friends, and the last thing they saw was the monster attacking their friend, and after that, all he just stated was depression. In the end, they couldn't stop working and ended up joining Shin's clan, but Mary soon left, as it was too painful for her just to be near Hayashi, as seeing him reminded her of all those who had gone before. Since then, she's been jumping from group to group and never stays in one group for long, as she's afraid of making contacts and catching on to people. He then gets up from his seat and bows before asking them to take care of her and leave, and Shin tells them that he can understand the pain of losing someone, as he too has lost countless companions before, so he just tells them to cherish their friendship because they'll only realize its value when it's gone. On the way home, Hanta starts complaining, saying that the fact that she's had a difficult past doesn't mean they have to be too kind to her, and according to him, each of them has had a difficult past, and if she's not willing to put in the effort to get over it and make friends, then he's not interested in putting in the effort either. He'd only do it if it was for Chihiro, as her body is the only reason to live, and Haruhiro agreed. In the end, the girls cry and say that they should try to be friends with Mary, because she's traumatized just like they've all lost teammates, so they must learn to understand their pain. Guys, I'm back from a break. Some people will notice, others won't, but when my voice changes pitch, it's because I've stopped to do something with my life, and then I start recording again. It's impossible to record these gigantic hour-long videos and not stop to give Chihiro a thumbs up. The straight talk. It takes 5 hours to record a video like that. Continuing with this video, Haruhiro supports this sentiment of wanting to treat Mary very well, and Hanta opens his mouth to talk more shit as usual, but no one is willing to listen to him. Then he complains that no one has ever heard what he wants to say, and that everyone ignores his idea, but Yumi replies that all his ideas are always dog shit, so of course they ignore everything he says, and this unfortunately results in other fight. And while all this is going on, Haruhiro thinks about it and finally realizes that even a dog like Hanta feels emotion. The guy also wants to be validated, so he decides to make up with Hanta and listen to everything he has to say, even if if 90% of the things that come out of his mouth are shit. He apologizes to Hanta and tells him that he will be more careful from now on, and that he will also try to be a friend to him. But he also tells Hanta to stop being such a pussy, and Hanta finally apologizes for saying such bad things about Mary. He then asks them how he should interact with the girl tomorrow, which makes even Haruhiro wonder how he's going to stand up to Mary now that they all know her path. So the next morning, Yumi and Haruhiro were out exploring the area again, while the weather was gloomy and rainy. Then, out of nowhere, Haruhiro notices that one of the goblins has the dagger he dropped the day Manato died. He gets angry about this and tries to hurry to get it back, but Yumi pushes him away quickly, just in time, not letting him be noticed by one of the nearby goblins who was patrolling the area. He then apologizes to her, saying that he hasn't been himself for the last few days, and tells her that they should try to find out where the secret hiding place is. Meanwhile, Hanta, Chihoro, Magusa, and Mary are relaxing in an abandoned building, passing the time waiting for Yumi and Haruhiro to arrive. They finally return, completely drenched in rain, and announce that they haven't been able to find any good target, as all the goblins were either in large groups or extremely alert and in difficult to reach positions. Hanta says that they should go back if they have nothing to do there, and they all get up. But Haruhiro tells them that he wants to talk to Mary first. She seems surprised by this, but bravely stands up to him, asking what he wants, and he tells her that he wants to date her every year. He just wants to talk. But she says that if he wants her to leave the group, and he can tell her she'll leave immediately. Haruhiro then realizes that everyone is acting strange. Ever since they found out about Mary, she must have noticed all this, and so she must believe that they are planning to kick her out of the group. But Haruhiro promises her that they don't want her to leave and starts talking. He tells her that before her, there was a priest called Manato who was also their leader, and there we go again. He goes on to say that Manato ended up dying at the hands of the goblin, or more honestly, he died because of their own carelessness. A bunch of noobs, and he tells her that Manato used to heal them, cause damage, be the tank, emotional support, leader, workhorse, cook, who would heal them even if they had suffered a minor scratch. The guy was doing thousands of jobs on his own, and even though he was doing all this, he never complained about anything and never let them know it. He bore every burden alone, and in the end, he died. He says that when Manato died, everyone thought that was the end of the group, but in order to support themselves, they needed money, and this anime here was made for them to suffer facing goblin, not to serve coffee to others, to plant crops, and that can only be what the script says. And in order to go on adventures, they need a priest, and that was the only reason they wanted her on the team in the first place. He tells Mary that originally, in their root mode, they were just a group of failed people who weren't accepted into any of the teams, so Manato decided to befriend them all and created this group. They are still good friends who support each other, except Hunter, in the most difficult moment. Mary is a little surprised by this revelation, but Haruhiro shocks her even more, saying that no matter what she thinks, he considers her a friend too. Haruhiro's speech was given, and he looked at her waiting for her reaction, and his speech worked, because the girl this time said that she also considers all of them her friend, and soon all of them, including Hunter, say that they want to be friends with her. After that, when the rain finally stopped for the night, everyone went home while a beautiful sunset could be seen on the horizon. Just before they split up, Haruhiro invites Mary to help them find a helmet for Maguso, but Mary turns them down, saying she can't go. Haruhiro insists and asks if she would like to join them for dinner, but she looks at them with sad eyes and tells everyone that she needs a little more time to come to terms with it all. After that, she says goodbye and runs away from them, while the rest of the group go off in search of Maguso's helmet from the market. They manage to find a suitable helmet and return home, and the next day everything was a little easy, as the Maguso could attack their enemies without fear, and they began to recover every day. Now the teamwork had become good enough for them to defeat a group of 4 goblins without too much difficulty, and what's more, every day they managed to get even closer to Mary, who was slowly but surely approaching them. They started going to those ruins every day to hunt goblins, and soon everyone began to know them as the goblin hunters, and whenever they went to the bar, a group of people always made joke, which annoyed the weakest link in the group, but Haruhiro always said that people weren't lying. Day after day they continued their attack on the goblins, and soon they had no more trouble taking down any green thing that came their way, and obviously they kept improving their equipment with the money they managed to get. The wretches killed so many goblins that I personally started calling them goblin slayers, and they made so much money killing goblins that they were finally able to invite Mary to dinner, and while everyone was laughing and happy, Mary was looking grumpy, and Haruhiro realized he'd never seen her smile before. As time went by, they were able to invest in better armor, and even learned a few more skills, such as Haruhiro's silent step skill, which literally hid his footsteps so that he could get closer to his enemy. He also has the shadow magic, which makes any enemy sleep for a period of time. Hunter got the quick step skill to quickly create a distance between him and the enemy, and then his boost skill, which allows him to move super fast with a stab attack, often catching enemies off guard. Meanwhile, Maguso has invested in his strength ability, which paralyzes enemies for a brief moment. This ability gives any Inuti enough time to finish off the goblin in this situation. On the other hand, Mary has always been a few levels above them, so she didn't need to invest in anything. In addition to all the new skills they've all learned, Haruhiro has awakened a certain special ability, which sometimes allows him to see the path of his blade. If he makes his blade travel that way and hit his enemy, he can beat that enemy, no matter what kind of enemy it is. If he has that little thread, he can defeat him with a single blow. That night, everyone goes back for a good night's sleep, having decided to finally finish off the remaining goblins in the ruin. After all, they have become very powerful, and they believe they can wipe them all out in one fell swoop and finally avenge Manato's death. The next morning, they all gather for the attack and have their last group. Haruhiro then gives a speech about how much Manato did for them and promises that today is the day they will avenge his death. Haruhiro says that last time, they all felt immense pain and he doesn't want to feel that again, so they need to stay safe and get out of this situation alive. Mary, on the other hand, finally opens up on her own, saying that she let her friends die in a dungeon, but that now she'll make sure none of them die this time. Tadinha revealed something incredible, but they've all gossiped about her life. Bunch of, I'm not going to lose monetization here. When it all begins, we see that the goblins seem to be having a fairly quiet day, as some of them are patrolling and keeping watch, while others are sleeping. Some are playing Uno and others are playing chess, and none of them have any idea that their boring day is about to become an action-packed one, in which they all lose their lives, and the action finally begins with one of them sneaking up behind a goblin, while on the other side Hunter and Haruhiro position themselves near the staircase. Meanwhile, Magusa, Mary, and Chihoro are all hiding inside the ruin, waiting for the ambush to happen. Then Ayumi takes perfect aim and hits the neck of one of the goblins who was wielding a crossbow, killing him instantly, and before another goblin realizes what has happened, Haruhiro approaches him and wields it behind his back, and this alerts the goblin chief, who is playing chess. A goblin comes to attack Haruhiro, but he dodges and tries to block the attacks to the best of his ability. Hunter quickly appears and slits the goblin's throat. Magusa, on the other hand, bursts through the door, alerting all the goblins, who get ready and start waking up their troop. Our heroes start systematically clearing the whole area, until out of nowhere they spot two goblins coming down the stairs, but the Magusa immediately attacks them, smashing one of them against the wall, while the other jumps up. Luckily, Chihoro is there for cover and hits him with her shadow blast, which knocks him unconscious for a moment, and when he starts to get off the ground, Hunter uses his sword to slice him through the air, killing the goblin. Goblins come here to watch this anime while eating popcorn, just happy. Haruhiro and the others immediately head for the top floor, so as not to give the goblins a chance to gather, but a group of goblins using crossbows start shooting at them, forcing them to take cover. The goblin in safety, who probably works at Job's girl's house, approaches and breaks the table behind which the Magusa was hiding, leaving the sky open before raising his club and throwing the Magusa against the wall. Hunter immediately jumps in front and starts dealing with the smaller goblin, leaving Ayumi is also representing the group, dealing even with larger goblin. However, the general is much tougher than normal goblin and simply breaks the arrows, then runs towards them to give them that famous push. They dodge the attack, but the general pushes Haruhiro back with another attack, which is blocked, while Yumi runs at him from behind, distracting him and forcing him to defend himself. And taking advantage of this, they manage to cut the goblin's waist, while the Magusa is in an all-out war with security, exchanging continuous blows, while Hunter does his best to fend off the two goblins who push him back. He immediately uses his retreat ability to create some distance, while shouting for Haruhiro to help, but Haruhiro responds politely, saying, "I'm busy, man." The goblin tries two quick attack, only to be forced back by Yumi. This is the girl power moment, as we see a girl getting into position and risking a spell, which hits the safety goblin, immediately putting him to sleep, and this action gives Magusa the opportunity to finish him off once and for all, but he ends up in a difficult position at the last moment, as one of the goblins blocks his attack with a rock, while the other slaps the bigger goblin to wake him up. It's at this point that Haruhiro realizes that they can also understand magic, which is a problem. As the tide starts to turn, the general ends up hitting Yumi in the shoulder, and Hunter tries to attack, but is blocked by another goblin. Haruhiro immediately rushes to his defense and attacks the general, but the general starts starts attacking relentlessly, and Haruhiro realizes that if this keeps happening, he'll end up suffering a lethal blow. Fortunately, the help arrives just in time and switches positions with Haruhiro, and when the general tries to attack the tide, it simply blocks the attack and then strikes him in the head with its staff, giving Haruhiro the opportunity to advance and strike the enemy in the chest. But this particular goblin trains night and day to get human women, so he's still alive. So Haruhiro tries to stab him in the heart, but the monster uses his hands to block the attack and hits him with the back of his spear, pushing him away. He tries to approach once more, while Mare quickly uses her healing ability on Yumi, but by the time they turn their attention to the general, he's already running away. Hunter and Magusa are still fighting their opponent, and as tanky as Magusa is, he's taken a lot of damage from the security guard and is starting to feel dizzy, but he doesn't give up and keeps giving the rest of the team space to fight, and the girl tries to fire another shadow blast at the security guard, but he dodges, only to hit Magusa again. Magusa falls to the ground, but Mare immediately casts her healing magic while Yumi enters the fray again and everyone gets busy. It's then that Chihiro decides to take matters into her own hand and runs forward chanting her spell and fires another shadow blast at the security guard from behind, and this time she hits her target just before two goblins knock her out. The security guard is knocked out for a second, which was enough time for Magusa to deliver a decisive blow, knocking the guy to the ground. Seeing this, the other two goblins start to run away, but Hunter uses his running ability and stabs one of them in the back, killing it, and luckily the girl wasn't hurt, and even Hunter's turd recognized her bravery. Now, with their chances of victory renewed, they all regroup and decide to follow the remaining goblins to put an end to this once and for all. They all go up to the top floor, where they find the general sitting in his chair, almost lifeless, with blood dripping from his wound. He's breathing heavily and can't seem to move, so Hunter approaches him and puts his sword to his neck. But before he can kill him, they hear a whistling sound and turn to see that Mary has been hit with an arrow fired by one of the goblins, who was hiding in the raft. Yes, it's going to be the same story. She's going to die too. She falls to the ground, and the general gets up again to chase Haruhiro, but Ayumi cuts off his leg, while Haruhiro uses his arm again to protect a healer. Hunter tries to close a kill there, but the enemy's armor protected him, and he tried to escape, but the Maguso appeared and landed a beautiful blow, finally killing, and now Hunter tries to find a way to get the goblin from the beast, while Haruhiro seems to be scared to death. Luckily Mary is still alive, and she tells him to tend to the wound. The goblin runs out of the window and aims at her to kill anyone who chases him, but Haruhiro finally stops thinking about Manato and thinks about his current situation. After stopping thinking about Manato for just a second, his Kai rises to 253, and with such intelligence he throws his cloak first, which causes the goblin to use his shot on the cloak, and then he takes off running towards the goblin, who throws his crossbow and grabs the dagger he stole from Haruhiro. But Haruhiro keeps going, and with a very cool combo, he kicks the goblin to the ground, and when the dagger falls from his disgusting hand, Haruhiro climbs on top of him to kill him, but the goblin turns the tide as they fall to the roof, getting the better of Haruhiro. But Haruhiro manages to grab his other dagger and stab the goblin in the neck, finally killing him. Does the anime end? No, there's still more. After avenging the death of their groupmate, they all return to the valley to visit Manato's grave, all while the first snow of the season begins to fall around them. They all say a few nice words while Mary stands and watches from afar, and when they've all picked up their new badges and shown them off, she approaches them all and picks up a badge they've also bought for Manato. They place the badge on top of the headstone, and Ashiharu starts to fall apart, crying her eyes out as Yumi holds her. Everyone starts to head back, while Haruhiro starts chatting to Mary, and now it seems she's taking more of an interest in him, which gives her the opportunity to test whether he's anywhere near as good a heart-winning leader as Manato. But she's not easily impressed and tells him to try next time. That said, they both part and go their separate ways. The next morning, Haruhiro wakes up early out of habit, but realizes that they've decided to take a day off, since the last day was quite heavy in terms of physical and mental effort. Man, after that day, bro, I could rest for a whole month. Come on, man. He goes downstairs and finds Maguso preparing breakfast. They sit outside to have breakfast, and he bites into a delicious loaf of freshly baked bread made by Maguso. Haruhiro asks Maguso where the rest of the group is, and Maguso replies that Hanta has left early, saying he's found a girlfriend, which means he'll come back sad and drunk. Ashiharu, on the other hand, avoids looking so as not to get excited in the morning, and when Haruhiro asks about Yumi, Maguso says that he hasn't seen her all morning, which makes Haruhiro suspect that the girl is still lying in bed asleep. He asks Maguso what he's going to do on his day off, and he tells Haruhiro that his armor was badly damaged in the last fight, and that his sword was also blocked. blinded, so he'll probably spend his time in the armor, fixing his thing. Haruhiro tells him that he should at least visit a brothel or something, but Maguso says that he's saving his body for Ashiharu, and Haruhiro understands that feeling, and tells him to meet him at the same old tavern at night. And then he goes out for a walk in the city, as he has nothing better to do than that. He arrives at the bridge and finds Ashiharu totally involved with Pigeon, and she's happily feeding them poison. So Haruhiro approaches and tells her about Maguso's new bread recipe, and then she just smiles and tells him that she's already eaten, saying that everything Maguso makes is extremely delicious. Maguso's got a chance, bro. Maguso's got a chance. They then start looking at the sunrise, remembering the time when they screwed up together, coming to this crazy world, our shitty world, but it's in this world that overcoming your challenges is great, a delight. After that, Haruhiro goes to a stall and buys some meat tidbits, then walks around the city aimless, looking for something interesting to do in this boring city, until out of nowhere he comes across Mary reading a book in a coffee shop. She seems surprised by Haruhiro's presence in this 3-meter-long city, and he says he's not a stalker or anything, and she offers him a place to sit, saying that if he sits there, he'll have to pay the bill, so he just gets a cheap coffee. And Mary tells him that she's living on the floor above the coffee shop, and that she likes to spend time alone, thinking about how crap her life is. Haruhiro then gets up, thinking she wants him to leave, but she reveals that she enjoys his company, and out of nowhere starts stroking this cross between a skunk and a cat. It's at this point that Haruhiro uses his thieving skills to take a look at her thigh, all to come to the conclusion that Chihiro is definitely the better girl. Afterwards, Mary tells him that everyone should come here sometime so they can have a relaxing tea, and he agreed. During the conversation, Mary tells him that just like them, she once lived in those lodgings that smelled of Iboro trees, but after she inherited her dead friend's belongings, she became rich and started living in better places. Haruhiro then tells her that they will soon leave their lodgings too, and find a better place, since they have been earning a good amount of money in recent days, but this will only happen if they don't all end up dying. Meanwhile, Ranta hasn't got any girls, and is now on his boat trying to catch a fish, when out of nowhere he sees someone doing sporting activity. When he looked closer, he saw that it was Ayumi, who was exercising her climbing skill, aiming to master the perfect escape. Maguso, on the other hand, is in a good mood, just taking a nap in his chair, having already recovered all the pieces of his armor. Mary and Haruhiro leave the cafe together to meet the others at the tavern, but they stop halfway to watch another beautiful sunset against the orange sea. The guys like sunsets in this anime. If I left the house I'd see one too. I moved here to Sao Paulo. There are only buildings in this shit. I'll see how. This doesn't exist here in Sao Paulo. There's a street in the direction of Liberdade where there's a building on one side, a building on the other. I just think, but if a zombie rebellion happened, what would happen? There is no life here in Sao Paulo. If there is a zombie rebellion, it will be a lot of zombies. There will be a lot of people. Later that night, everyone gathers in the tavern to drink cachaça once again, while they talk and have fun, until out of nowhere Kakawa, who I'll call Kiki now, comes across them once again, and tells them about a very interesting thing that's been happening in the city. According to him, some new adventurers have entered the ruined city, that place where they always kill goblins. Incredibly, these people ended up encountering a bunch of armored goblins, who killed several of their teammates and wounded some of them too. Mary enters the conversation and tells Haruhiro that she's sure they killed all the goblins in the main ruined area, but it's quite possible that this group of goblins are relatives or acquaintances who were killed but who lived elsewhere and have now returned to occupy that place and possibly even take revenge on them. Dude, in this anime the goblins have plot twists, plot developments. It's better than Goblin Slayer here. Goblin Slayer, the goblins just get hit in the face and die, and according to Kiki, the goblins are fully prepared for a fight, angrily patrolling and scouring every part of the city, leaving no room for any adventurer to venture inside. After that, Kiki says it's not their problem, and after letting out a stinky fart right next to Haruhiro, he leaves. After that everyone had to leave, the guy blew up the whole tavern, and then Haruhiro tells the others about these crazy goblin rumors. He says that maybe they should go back to the ruins and check out everything that's going on there. But Ranta comes up with the first clever idea in this whole anime, saying that they shouldn't do that, because if the rumors are false, they've just lost a day's worth of money. Ranta, that's not what I wanted you to say. Say that if you go there you'll die, because the guys are very well armed. But Maguso said what I thought, suggesting that they should change their hunting area, since they've only been killing goblins for 20 years. Maguso says that the people who watch this anime must be sick of seeing only goblins dying, and that they should kill another type of creature so that they can have a second season. Hearing this, Haruhiro says that now that Manato is dead, they won't get a second season, not by a long shot, but it doesn't hurt to try, and he tells everyone to go to the mines in Siren, which surprises everyone, because that place is where Mary lost all her teammates. He immediately tries tries to apologize, but the idiot Ranta tells Haruhiro that this is the best idea he's had in a while and says that they should raid those mines and get as many items as possible. Then Maguso asks if they're sure about this because the giant monster is also present in the same mine, and if Mary's team couldn't do anything, they won't stand a chance against this thing. However, Ranta acts just like Mary's team and says that they should at least try because the monster has a reward of 30 gold coins. Haruhiro then tells everyone to calm down and says that it would be a good idea for them to actually change their hunting location. After all, if they stay in the same place, they might end up getting too used to it and letting their guard down, as the task every day will seem too easy. He says it's good to challenge yourself once in a while, and as he doesn't know anywhere else to venture, he thought he could try his luck inside the mine, obviously taking the necessary precautions not to mess with a big monster. He says he'll vote in favor of going to the Siren Mines and venturing, and Yumi speaks up and says she doesn't think it's bad to go to the same place to venture several times because lately they've been putting themselves in less dangerous situations, but this is only happening because they're improving, and Haruhiro tells her that if they keep going to the same place, their progress will stagnate, and she agrees with that sentiment. Suddenly Mary gets up from her seat. She asks them to excuse her for a moment and gets out of her seat herself. Haruhiro gets up immediately and starts to follow her outside, but she disappears into the darkness of the night. He continues walking through the starry night and finally finds her at the top of the stairs. He goes to her, but she shrinks back and apologizes for running away. Haruhiro thinks about her statement about wanting to go to a place where she lost all her teammates and realizes that this must be a huge task for her to overcome mentally. She tells him that she doesn't think she'll be able to keep her cool when they get in and out of the mine. Not just now, but perhaps in the future she will cause them problems. Haruhiro understands her feelings and assures her that he wouldn't put her in a situation where she feels uncomfortable, and he's already done that by indicating the mines as the next exploration site. However, Mary believes his lie, and this gives her some courage, as she realizes that if she carries on like this, she'll never get over her teammates or what happened inside the mine. She looks at Haruhiro and tells him that she wants his help and that of his team, as she doesn't think she'll be able to do everything on her own, and Haruhiro assures her that they'll be by her side no matter what, and that she can count on them whenever the situation gets out of hand. She gets up and wipes away her tear, before thanking him for his words and saying that she's looking forward to the next adventure. Before heading to the mines, everyone decides to hone their skills and equipment so that they have the best chance of making it out alive. Haruhiro has gone to the Thieves Guild to meet his trainer, Barbara, and she calls him a little stiff since the last time she saw him. In the blink of an eye, she shortens the distance between the two of them and puts a knife to his throat. She tells him that if they had been in a fight, Haruhiro would have been deleted in an instant, and without giving him time to speak, she simply knocks him to the ground. They start training, and Barbara is involved in some perverse ideas, as she keeps hitting Haruhiro at every possible moment, and after hitting him so many times, he can't even get up, and she finally gives him a reward by sitting on his stomach, and then starts tormenting him, asking him if he had already lost his virginity or not. This question touches his wound, and Haruhiro feels sad, wanting to die. It turns out that he's so tired of being a failure at love that he doesn't see any point in his life anymore, so he answers honestly, saying that even though his group has 3 beautiful girls, the most he's managed to do is chat amicably with them. Barbara mocks him some more, but then Haruhiro changes the subject and asks her about the magical path he sometimes sees while fighting enemy and what exactly it is. She seems to be impressed by it and says it's a good sign, as only adventurers who have gained a substantial amount of experience are able to see it sometime, but she tells him not to be convinced as it's not something very special. Haruhiro asks if she's ever been able to see, and she sits on him again, claiming that she does see a few times here and there, but this ability is something he can't just focus on, as it appears randomly. She tells him that if he wants to see this ability more often, he'll need to train and get stronger, and then starts training him once again. A few days pass, and finally the team is fully ready to explore the dungeons of the Siren Mine. They look up at the mountain while Haruhiro gives them all a piece of advice, saying that they are heading into uncharted territory, and that for this reason, they need to be more cautious than ever. That said, the journey begins, and as soon as they enter, the fight begins. Haruhiro faces a monster that tries to put a bullet in his face, but Haruhiro dodges the attack and tries to counterattack, but he misses and is forced to retreat. He collides with Ranta, who is also losing ground. While Maguso kills the monster he is facing with a single blow. Ayumi picks up her knives and throws one of them at the monster's neck, then uses another to slit its throat in a clean, surgical way. The Meguzo decides to help the others and runs towards Haruto's enemy, engaging him in combat and acting as a distraction. Haruhiro takes advantage of this and runs up behind him, pinning him down, before stabbing him in the chest and jumping back. Meguzo raises his sword in the direction, but the monster is already dead on the ground, so they quickly approach Hanta, who parries his opponent's attack and uses a demonic spell to throw red shit at the enemy. This new ability of his leaves the enemy scared and unsure of his decision, just like me, every day of my life. And this kind of thinking leads the monster to make mistakes, just like my wife did when she threw a fan at my head. The monster then runs towards Hanta and starts attacking him non-stop, while all he does is run backwards several times, losing ground very quickly. Haruhiro asks if he needs help, but Hanta refuses and says that he is the main character in this anime, while Haruhiro is just an extra. That said, he finally finds an opening and slashes the monster's wrist before leaping into the air and delivering the killing blow. After the area has been cleared, Mary tells them that these monsters are called kobolds. In all the anime it's like that, but she says that they're nothing more than monsters that look like dogs. She tells them that they have a ring in their nose, which is known as a talisman, and that they need to collect it because they can sell it for a good amount of money on the market. She also goes on to tell them that these monsters are basically the weakest, obviously the weakest in this mine, and she warns them that when they go deeper into the mine, they will find monsters that are much stronger and in greater number. They quickly collect as many talismans as they can from the dead enemy and move on. They go down to the next level, and Mary warns them that now things are going to get ugly, as this level is made up of normal monsters, and the best thing to do is to avoid fighting with them. They start walking, and suddenly they hear a lot of howling noises that scare them, but Haruhiro gives them all a bit of confidence, and they start walking. Suddenly Meguzo stops where he was, and they all look at a hole in a wall and see a bunch of monsters sleeping in it, and Mary says that they're very lucky that these monsters aren't patrolling the area, and they start to move. They advance, when suddenly some monsters start to wake up. Then they enter a special layer, and one of their friends uses shadow magic to turn the ground into quicksand, which makes it impossible for the monsters to move, and the rest of the team takes advantage of this opportunity, quickly eliminating them with precise blows to their vital organ. One of the monsters that was hiding sneaks up behind Haruhiro to try to attack him from behind, but he simply takes a calming breath, follows the straight line to his opponent's neck, and kills him with a single blow. Every time this line appears, he only needs one blow to defeat the creature. They collect the talisman, while Mary recognizes that they are stronger than she thought, as they haven't had much trouble dealing with normal monsters. But she tells them that from now on, it will be extremely difficult, as the next level has the leader of the monsters, known as their Dog King. Hanta wants to advance to the next level, and Haruhiro tells him that they should come back the next day, not push their luck, as they are already tired, and fighting stronger opponents in this state could be dangerous, and they all go back for the night. And while lying in his bed, Haruhiro starts thinking about the manatee once again, and realizes that the team seems to be working very well, with the exception of Hanta, because he's a guy who has what it takes to go ape. He doesn't listen to anyone, doesn't accept suggestions or criticism, and is always ready to charge headlong into dangerous situations. He decides to talk about it, and asks Hanta if he'd like to talk. Hanta, who was awake, gets up to leave, while Haruhiro follows him. Once downstairs, Haruhiro asks him what he thinks about the team, but Hanta replies mercilessly that he has nothing to say. He tells Haruhiro that he has fulfilled his duty, and that this is all that matters to him. He says that today he proved that he can take on an enemy without the help of the others, and Haruhiro tells him that yes, he took on the enemy alone, but if he had let everyone help him, he could have killed the enemy much faster, and saved a lot of energy too. And Hanta immediately replies that he doesn't want to rely solely on the team's help, because he believes he'll have a lot of problems when he's caught alone by the enemy. What's more, if he manages to defeat an enemy on his own, it means that the team can concentrate on another objective, which will make them even more efficient. It's at this point that Haruhiro realizes that Hanta is thinking about his place in the group in his own way, but he tells Hanta that whenever he needs help he can ask for it from the team. For God's sake, don't die. Burying a friend is expensive. In the end, Hanta acts like a pain in the ass, and Haruhiro tells him that his impetuous nature makes it difficult for the team to understand what he really wants. He tells Hanta that they are currently a team, so they need to communicate. Hanta responds by saying that everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, but he hates it when Haruhiro tries to show everyone his weakness. He then asks Haruhiro what his weaknesses are, and Haruhiro, who has never thought about it, remains silent. Then Hanta smiles and tells him that they can pretend to be a cheerful and friendly team if they want, but he has no reason, and he doesn't want to be friends with them. And he will continue doing what he believes is best, killing monsters, and that's it. The next morning, Haruhiro wakes up to the distinctive sound of knives knives being thrown at a wooden board, and he gets up only to see Yumi practicing her knife throwing skill. He is impressed by her skills as she shows him the knives she recently bought, and she says she has been practicing every day to get better at throwing. After stretching a bit more, they finally enter the dungeon, where Mary shows off her new skill, which doesn't do much damage but numbs and weakens the opponent, which works very well to support Ranta and Maguso, who can come in later and finish the kill with their heavy attack. Ranta ends up making a mistake and looks like he's having trouble dealing with the enemy, so Haruhiro immediately jumps on his back and stabs him in the neck, while Ranta drives his sword into the enemy's body, which narrowly misses Haruhiro. Haruhiro is a little annoyed by this, but realizes that Ranta is simply an idiot, so he goes to help Yumi, who is trying to defend herself against one of the monsters. Haruhiro then goes for the assist and slashes the monster's leg, giving Yumi the opening to parry 2 blows, while the Maguso finishes off using his new ability called Air Boost, which allows him to quickly approach and attack enemies from a distance. They finally find one of the elders, and Chiaoro immediately uses her magic spells to slow him down. Haruhiro tells them that if they play their cards right, they might be able to defeat this monster without suffering any injury. But before they can think of a game plan, Ranta lunges forward alone like a madman and kills the monster immediately. After that, they go down to the next level, which seems to be some kind of open farm. Everyone looks around and Yumi sees a group of strange animals coming towards them. Ranta tries to poke them with his sword, but Haruhiro tells him not to, and they start fighting again. Suddenly, Mary tells them to crouch down, and they all immediately duck when they see a group of monsters looking for signs of intruder. Immediately, Ranta ends up tripping over a wire, which alerts the enemies, and they all start howling looking for the source of this sound. Suddenly, they hear the sound of loud footsteps, and Mary is immediately paralyzed on the spot. Haruhiro tries to call out to her, but she doesn't understand. He peers through the bushes and spots a huge monster with black and white spots on its body, known as the Death Monster, which killed Mary's former teammate. Yumi tries to take a look, but Haruhiro immediately pulls her down just in time. While Mary is still stuck in place, having a panic attack, Haruhiro goes to her and after reality, and the Death Monster was looking for them as it smelled humans, and Mary apologizes for being distracted and tells everyone to follow her quietly. They descend to the next level safely, but this level feels like hell itself. They can only feel the temperature rising. They spot a group of monsters working with metal, making armor, while Mary tells them that they can't rest here and need to move quickly. Haruhiro then starts playing Assassin's Creed and jumps on one of the guards from above, stabbing him in the neck and killing him immediately, while Magusi and Hanta quickly grab the body to keep it quiet. They drag the body to hide it and finally enter a cave full of plants and statues. It's at this point that everyone stops for a while to rest, and Mary tells them that this is exactly the place where she lost her 3 friends. Her teammate. She walks forward and picks up a staff, saying that it belonged to her before, but when they fled, she left the body to fall here. While sitting down, Yumi suddenly gets up, saying she heard something. Hanta picks up some random rubbish and throws it forward, only to see the figure of 3 hooded people in the darkness. They advance, and Haruhiro immediately realizes that they are the zombified adventurers, who didn't have a proper funeral, and Mary realizes that these zombies are her former teammates, so she goes ahead and calls him by name, hoping that they will somehow recover, but they seem to have lost their weapons and immediately draw their gun. Our heroes also get ready with their weapons and armor, while the zombie wizard throws a huge fire spell in their direction. They somehow dodge the attack, while Mary tells Haruhiro to cover her, as she wants to go ahead. Haruhiro realizes that Mary has recently learned a dissipation magic, which can even reverse the changes in a zombified corpse, but to use this magic, she will need to get closer to the zombies. She starts walking towards them, unafraid, while Haruhiro realizes that they need to do something, and tells Maguzu to deal with a warrior, and tells Hanta to deal with a thief, while he and Yumi go in front of and behind Mary, and Chihiro is there to support anyone. Maguzu and Hanta attack their opponent, while Haruhiro comes face to face with the zombie mage, who dodges the attack and immediately uses a firewall spell to block his view. Hanta is pushed back by the thief, so Chihiro uses her shadow magic and traps the enemy, giving Hanta the chance to attack, but to his surprise, the thief manages to block his blow and continues fighting even after being trapped in place. Haruhiro realizes that he may have made a mistake when choosing who would face whom, as his friends seem to be having a hard time. While he was distracted, he receives a fireball in the face, and so does Yumi, forcing them to be more careful. Meanwhile, Maguzu's opponent seems to be much more agile, and leaps into the air, only to unleash a very acrobatic attack. Chihiro immediately uses her sleep magic and fires at the zombie warrior, but it doesn't affect her in the slightest. It's at this point that Hanta shouts for support, because the thief won't stop. Haruhiro realizes that he has to do something, and starts running along the fire barrier only to spot Mary, who runs through the fire towards the maid. Haruhiro follows her inside, and sees her preparing to use dispel magic, so he immediately attacks the maid, and Mary has the opportunity to reverse the curse, converting her friend's zombie body into a human one. But this only happens for a second, and soon afterwards, Mary's friend turns to dust as she hugs her. After that, Haruhiro tells Yumi to help Maguzu, while he goes to Hanta to deal with the problem, and along with Hanta's attack, he tries to hit the zombie, but misses manual. Haruhiro decides to hurry, and starts fighting the zombified thief, but their skill levels seem to be the same. However, he realizes that in the long run, the zombie will be stronger than him, so he signals to Hanta, and immediately Hanta uses this distraction and cuts off the zombie's leg. Mary quickly approaches and uses her magic to reverse the curse again. After that, Hanta runs towards the warrior, starts attacking him along with Yumi and Maguzu, which gives an opening for Haruhiro, who grabs him from behind, while Maguzu cuts off his arm, giving Mary the opportunity to dispel the curse from her last teammate as well. After that, they finally sit down to relax a bit and talk, when suddenly a huge explosion is heard, and the death monster enters the cave and starts walking towards, bringing back Mary's horrible memory. Haruhiro tells everyone to run, but Hanta tells him to save himself, as the monster is already throwing its huge sword at him. Haruhiro narrowly dodges, doing a sliding maneuver, but the death monster grabs his sword and rushes towards him once again, hitting him, and this forces Haruhiro to get out of the way and run the other way. He tells everyone to flee quickly, as the death monster emerges from the rubble and lets out a great howl, alerting all the monsters in the area, who quickly run with swords and spears to block its path. Haruhiro tells Maguzu to use his war cry against them, and he does, leaving everyone confused and standing in one place, while the group runs towards the exit. Haruhiro then tells Maguzu to use his ability again, but he doesn't have enough manpower, and because of this, a girl ends up being captured by one of the monsters, but Hanta steps in to attack and chases the monster away. Haruhiro then tells Hanta to be the rearguard, so Hanta pushes the monsters back and starts running after his teammate. Mary and Haruhiro jump, followed by Maguzu, who catches her and jumps, and finally Hanta, who also jumps successfully. Haruhiro tells them to move quickly, as the monsters are increasing in number, while Yumi tries to stop them with her bow and arrow, but it's impossible to stop them all. Suddenly, they hear a loud noise and find the death monster following them, trying to break the structure they're in. He finally destroys it, and Haruhiro starts to fall, but he tries to run under the beams that are still falling to try to reach his group. At the final jump, he starts to fall, but luckily Hanta appears and grabs his arm. While Haruhiro is still hanging over death, Hanta tells him to climb up, and as he does, the enemies start shooting arrows at them, while the death monster picks up a giant shield and throws it towards them. It's at this point that Haruhiro reaches safety, but before Hanta can reach him, he starts to fall, and Haruhiro can't grab his arm as he falls into the rubble amidst the enemy. Hanta shouts from below and tells Haruhiro to run, because now that he's the leader, he needs to ensure the team's safety. Haruhiro tries to fight back, but is shot forced flee. He climbs up to the farmhouse and informs the team of what has happened, before telling Mary to get them out of here before they all die. They immediately hide behind the wall, and when the enemies start shooting, they all get ready to act. Meanwhile, Hanta downstairs takes a deep breath and shouts at the death monster, saying that he will be the only one to defeat the mine monster single-handed. However, his moment of calm is short-lived, as the enemies begin to barrage him with more arrows, forcing him to hide. The monsters start climbing the rubble, but Hanta doesn't give up easily and starts throwing rocks at them, preventing them from gaining any more ground. Somehow he manages to escape to a higher level, and stumbles on his way and falls to the ground. Just then, the strange pig-like creature appears, and he decides to use this to his advantage by hiding among them all. And when he finally regains his composure, he uses his dark magic to summon a demonic creature and ask for advice, but it's totally useless because the demonic creature just wants everyone to die, including Hanta. Meanwhile, Mary heals Haruhiro, and he makes a plan to find Hanta somehow and get to the top without losing anyone from his group. Everyone slowly starts heading towards the farm, while one of the monsters ends up approaching the pig monsters, forcing Hanta to stab him in the chest. The fallen gun of the guy who was killed alerts the other. He hides inside a cupboard and catches his breath, while the enemies search for him. Suddenly, the death monster breaks open the cupboard, and on seeing Hanta, he beats him up. Somehow, Hanta survives and uses his recoil ability to dodge the attack and runs off with a limp. The death monster follows him, and he would have killed Hanta, but Ayumi used her bow and arrow to shoot the death monster in the eye, while Haruhiro Haruhiro ran up to him and grabbed him. Some monsters appeared to attack Mary and the others, but she was strong enough to defend herself, and the Meguso also began to destroy all the monsters around it. And it's at this point that our mage takes action, using her offensive magic to create a series of explosions that kill several monsters at once. All this while Mary heals Ranta, and Ayumi shouts that her arrows have run out. Haruhiro then tells her to back off and advance, killing 2 wolf beasts. Once this is done, he goes back to hold Ranta, and his friends go on to kill the monsters so that they can run to safety. They take advantage of the chaos and manage to escape to the upper level, where everyone gets a breather and Mary heals Ranta's wound. That done, they all start to make their way out of this hellhole, happy to have survived, when to their absolute horror, the death monster climbs up the side of the ravine and tries to attack them once again. And Meguso steps forward to do his job as a tank, but the monster breaks his sword and throws it aside. Magic doesn't work against it either, and Haruhiro decides that now is the time for him to do something. So he approaches alone and dodges an attack from the death monster before grabbing its neck and pushing it back into the ravine along with him. Mary tries to help him, but Ranta understands the situation and takes everyone with him. After that, Haruhiro wakes up from his fall, and he realizes that his wrist is broken, and when he starts to bandage it, the death monster wakes up too, and now Haruhiro has no idea what to do, and almost accepts his defeat, when suddenly the way opens up. Yes, there is a chance for him to win, and he gives it his all. He follows the path that his vision indicates, and stabs the monster in the eye, before cutting his sword in two, which impales the death monster in the chest, and it dies instantly. After that, he falls to the ground unconscious, and when he wakes up, he finds himself in his bed, and Mary is sitting next to him. She lets out a cry of joy at finally seeing him wake up, and he goes downstairs to find that everyone has managed to escape safely, and then come back again to help him. It was there that they found Haruhiro, lying next to the dead death monster. That day, during the night, they went to the tavern to celebrate, and even Renji praised Haruhiro for his skill, and apologized for offering him a gold coin, saying that even he didn't want them to die like Manato did, so he tried to help. The next day, Haruhiro goes to the grave of his great man, Manato, and now he finally puts an end to his schizophrenia, having his last conversation with Manato's ghost, and he tells Manato that he will do his best to lead the team that Manato created very well, and make him proud in heaven. And so ends the anime Hidogenzu no Grimgar, which will never have another season. If it does, I'll watch it because I love this anime so much. Man, 12 episodes and the guys have faced a goblin and a dog, a giant dog. In this anime, there's still a demon king. I'd like to know what Renji is up against. The guy must be dealing with the 5-horned captor. I don't know, bro. Things must be crazy for him. I'd like a version of Renji in this story. The guy must be sinister. Anyway, if you liked this video, mate, like it, share it with everyone, send me all your money. Wow, that's it. A big kiss to everyone. Bye and see you in the next video. Wow, I cussed. I lost my memory. Editor censors the guy Maya.